The hardened Vidian mercenaries trembled in their combat armor, eyes wide and thoughts racing, as the recon drones revealed the identity of Arcadia Colony's defenders, Colonel Philip Hunter and his elite human Spec Ops unit. The implications slowly sank in for the battle-scarred alien warriors. The boogeymen had arrived, and there would be blood, so much blood. Vidian Commander Cygnus maintained a facade of icy calm as ominous reports flooded in and hushed rumors spread like wildfire through the ranks. But inside, a rare seed of doubt sprouted in his gut. This was supposed to be an easy conquest, a swift victory over the pathetically primitive humans to further burnish the Vidians' sterling reputation as the galaxy's apex mercenaries. After all, the Vidian legions had shattered the armies of empires and brought far more advanced species to heel. Surely the upstart Terrans would fall like all the rest. But now the mere presence of Colonel Hunter, that mythic figure whispered about even in the most far-flung Vidian barracks, cast everything into doubt. If even a tenth of the stories were true. Cygnus slammed an armored fist on the tactical holomap, seething at this unexpected complication. Curse that damnable shadowy client for withholding the human Spec Ops presence from the mission briefing. This changed everything. The veteran commander knew all too well what men like Hunter and his elite killers were capable of. Those human special forces teams didn't know the meaning of retreat or mercy. They would fight to the bitter end, down to the last man if need be, to defend their precious colony. And in the claustrophobic urban canyons of Arcadia's capital, all of the Vidians' vaunted technological superiority would count for little. It would come down to bloody, ruthless close-quarters battle. And if the stories held true, that was a lethal space where the human Spec Ops excelled like no other force in the galaxy. Cygnus had a lucrative contract to fulfill and a reputation to uphold. Failure here against mere humans was unthinkable. He would bring the full might of Vidian arms crashing down on this paltry human settlement. Even the great Colonel Hunter could not prevail against such odds. Yet still, that flicker of doubt remained, unbidden and unbanished. Cygnus gazed out over the vast alien metropolis sprawling before him under unfamiliar stars. Somewhere in that twisting labyrinth of towers and streets, Hunter and his demons lay in wait, ready to make the Vidians pay in blood for every inch of ground. With a sharp gesture, Cygnus ordered his troops forward. The time for hesitation was over. Arcadia would fall, no matter the cost, even if he had to sacrifice every Vidian under his command to make it so. And so the mercenary commander set out to meet his fate, marching towards a battle that would echo through the ages. On a distant, unassuming human colony world, elite alien warriors and legendary human soldiers prepared to clash, neither side truly comprehending the forces they were about to unleash. All poor Commander Cygnus knew was that before this day ended, the streets of Arcadia would run red with Vidian blood. Such was the price for daring to test humanity's mettle. Vidian boots crunched on shattered concrete and twisted metal as Cygnus's mercenaries inched their way into Arcadia's shockingly silent streets. The commander felt his chest tighten with each step, senses straining for any hint of the human ambush he knew in his bones was coming. Nothing. No thermal signatures, no electronic emissions, not even a stray radio burst. It was as if the city itself was holding its breath. "I don't like this," muttered Kaz, Cygnus's second-in-command. "Where the hell are they?" Cygnus opened his mouth to tell Kaz to shut up and keep moving, but the words never left his lips, because in that instant, all the hells of the galaxy broke loose. It started with a supersonic crack and a spray of brain matter as Kaz's head snapped back, his helmet sporting a neat hole right between the eyes. Cygnus barely had time to register the loss of his lieutenant before a dozen more cracks split the air and Vidian after Vidian crumpled like marionettes with their strings cut. "Snipers!" Cygnus roared, diving for cover behind the blasted-out shell of a ground car. "Top floor windows, 500 meters. Suppressing fire, now!" His mercenaries opened up on the buildings, their advanced weapons stitching lines of glowing holes across the facades. But it was like trying to swat ghosts. The human snipers simply melted away, leaving nothing but dead Vidians in their wake. And then, as if on some unseen signal, the real slaughter began. They came boiling up from hidden tunnel entrances, rappelling down from rooftops, bursting out of doorways and alleys, human soldiers in midnight black armor, moving with a speed and fluid grace that made the Vidians look like clumsy children. They fell on the stunned mercenaries like wolves on sheep. Cygnus could only watch in numb horror as his warriors died. The humans' weapons made a mockery of Vidian armor, punching through shields and ceramite like paper. The mercs fired back on pure instinct, their shots wild and panicked. Those few rounds that struck home spanged harmlessly off the humans' armor, or were shrugged off with contemptuous ease. And then the aliens were in among them, and it wasn't a battle. It was a massacre. Vidians screamed as human blades found the chinks in their armor with uncanny precision. Mercenaries toppled as human pulse rounds blew craters in their chests. A few Vidians managed to club down a human with their rifle butts, or even get a hand around an exposed throat, but it was all ultimately futile. Cygnus triggered his comm with a shaking hand, near blind with fury and confusion. "This is Commander Cygnus to all dropships. I need air support at my position immediately. Danger close. Wipe these grok-shit humans off the face of the planet." For a few seconds, there was no response, and then a pained voice crackled across the command channel. "Commander, negative on air support. The humans, they have stingers. They're everywhere. We're taking heavy loss." The transmission cut off in a staccato burst of explosions and agonized screams. Cygnus stared at his comm in blank shock. "All dropships, come in. Talon Actual, do you copy?" Nothing but static. It was the Vidians' turn to scream and die as human soldiers, those demons in black, overran their positions. The mercs threw down their weapons and tried to surrender. The humans opened fire without mercy or hesitation. Room by blood-soaked room, building by corpse-choked building, the aliens were sent reeling. Cygnus ducked and dodged through the carnage, rifle barking as he put down 1, 2, 3 of the accursed humans. But it was like trying to hold back the tide with his bare hands. His warriors were being herded and slaughtered like cattle. And the most terrifying thing was the coordination and ruthless efficiency of it all. It was as if every human soldier was psychically linked to the others, all of them playing their part in some grand symphony of death. Colonel Hunter, this had to be his work. God damn him to all the hells. Cygnus stumbled around a corner and found himself face to face with a fire team of humans, weapons leveled at his chest. He froze, expecting disintegration to claim him at any moment. A gloved hand shot out, dragging him into cover just as a hail of human gunfire chewed up the street. "Commander, thank the gods!" It was Tylo, his comm officer, eyes wide with terror. "We have to get out of here. The humans, I've never seen anything like it." "Shut up and return fire!" Cygnus snarled, shoving Tylo away. He risked a glance out of cover and felt his blood turn to ice. Black armored figures were pouring out of the shadows, boxing them in. And at their head, an all-too-familiar figure in battle-scarred armor, a grim specter of death directing the slaughter with the inevitability of an oncoming tsunami. Hunter. Missiles streaked overhead and Cygnus looked up to see his last remaining dropships plummeting out of the sky in flames, swatted from the air by the humans' accursed stingers. All around him Vidians wailed in animal despair, their unit cohesion crumbling like sandcastles before the tide. "Fall back!" Cygnus roared, emptying his rifle in a futile full auto burst at the advancing humans. "All units, fall back to the LZ. We'll make our stand there." The Vidians broke and fled, all pretense of discipline gone. Running and stumbling over the bodies of their own dead, they abandoned their weapons, their honor, their oaths of service. None of it mattered anymore. All that mattered was escaping the black-clad horrors that had butchered their comrades like helpless newborns. Even the militia the mercenaries had so casually dismissed fought with a tenacity and courage that put the Vidians to shame. Cygnus watched a rail-thin human woman barely out of girlhood put a plasma bolt through the faceplate of a Vidian trooper at point-blank range, her features etched with hatred and defiance. What was it about these humans that made them fight so? Half blind with confusion and rage, firing behind him as he moved, Cygnus led the ragged survivors in a stumbling rout back to the landing zone. As the shattered remnants of his once proud legion limped into the perimeter, he heard scattered weapons fire from the outer sentries. Reinforcements from the fleet must have shuttled down to secure their retreat. Thank the gods for small mercies. It was a subdued and shell-shocked Cygnus who called the client via a scrambled comm line that night, requesting a massive influx of Vidian heavy assault elites and coldly informing him that the price had just doubled. "We're going to need the best of the best to have any hope of digging those damned humans out of the city," Cygnus growled, hating the client, hating the humans, hating himself most of all. This isn't the easy conquest we were promised." The client was silent for a long moment. Then, "You'll have your reinforcements and your pay increase, Commander, but understand this, failure is not an option. Arcadia must fall." "Understood," Cygnus said. But as he signed off, he couldn't shake the cold dread coiling in his gut, the sense that he had badly underestimated these humans and their terrifying protectors. Colonel Hunter and his demons had drawn first blood, and Cygnus had a sickening feeling that the streets of Arcadia would soon be painted a very different color. Cygnus paced the command tent, his boots wearing a path in the dusty floor. The stench of defeat clung to him like a shroud. He keyed his comm, struggling to keep the desperation from his voice. "This is Commander Cygnus to Vidian High Command. We need reinforcements immediately, a full heavy assault brigade at minimum, and I want double our contracted fee." Silence stretched for agonizing seconds. Then a cold voice crackled through the speaker. "You dare demand more credits after such a catastrophic failure?" Cygnus swallowed hard. "Sir, with all due respect, we were not adequately briefed on the situation. These humans they're unlike anything we've encountered. We need the very best you have." More silence. Cygnus could practically hear the gears turning in his employer's head, weighing the cost against the strategic importance of Arcadia. "Very well," the voice finally growled. "You'll have your brigade and your credits. But mark my words, Cygnus, failure is not an option." The line went dead. Cygnus sagged with relief, then straightened. He had work to do. Across the war-torn city, Colonel Hunter crouched behind a makeshift barricade, his face streaked with grime and blood. He motioned to his second-in-command. "Status report." The woman's eyes were hollow with exhaustion. "We bloodied them good, sir, but they'll be back, and in greater numbers." Hunter nodded grimly. "I know. We can't hold the entire city, not against what's coming." He unrolled a battered map. "We fall back. Concentrate our forces here, here, and here. Key infrastructure only. Let them have the rest." For 2 days, the humans worked feverishly. Buildings were rigged to collapse, choke points fortified, supplies stockpiled. Hunter's troops moved like ghosts through the empty streets, setting their traps. Then the sky darkened with dropships. Warlord Scavra's boots hit Arcadian soil with a dull thud. He surveyed the smoking ruins of the city, lip curled in disgust. "Pathetic," he spat. He rounded on Cygnus. "You let these primitives humiliate our forces?" Cygnus bristled, but held his tongue. He knew Scavra's reputation. 100 conquered worlds spoke to the warlord's tactical brilliance. Scavra barked orders and his troops fanned out. Heavy infantry in gleaming environment suits, jump troops with jetpacks flaring, mechs that shook the ground with each step, a truly awe-inspiring force. "Watch and learn, Cygnus," Scavra sneered. "This is how you crush an insurgency." The air filled with the buzz of hunter-killer drones. Artillery thundered, great gouts of flame erupting across the human lines. Scavra grinned ferally, certain of imminent victory. But the humans refused to break. Snipers picked off Vidian officers with terrifying accuracy. Mobile anti-air batteries swatted drones from the sky. Humans in powered armor went toe-to-toe with Vidian shock troops, fighting with suicidal grit. After hours of grinding combat, Scavra's smile had twisted into a snarl of rage. "Enough of this," he growled. "Commit the armor. All of it. I want those defensive lines shattered." Vidian tanks surged forward, cannon blazing, But for every block gained, a dozen vehicles lay burning. Human hunter-killer teams struck from sewers and collapsed buildings, disappearing before retaliation could find them. 3 days passed in a haze of unrelenting combat. The city became a charnel house. Vidian corpses choked the streets. But still the humans fought on, even as their numbers dwindled. Scavra glared at the tactical holomap, teeth bared in frustration. He stabbed a finger at the orbiting Vidian flagship. To hell with this. We'll reduce this cesspit to ash. Prepare for orbital bombardment. But even as the words left his mouth, alarms blared. On the holomap, a swarm of human fighters appeared, streaking towards the flagship. At their head, a single craft piloted with insane skill, juking and weaving through withering fire. Scavra's eyes widened in disbelief as his command ship erupted in flames, taking the strike codes with it. In the streets below, Colonel Hunter allowed himself a grim smile as he reloaded his rifle. The Vidians would have to do this the hard way. Warlord Scavra paced the command center, his mandibles twitching with barely contained rage. The humans clung to their fortifications like parasites, refusing to be dislodged. Every Vidian assault met a wall of plasma fire and improvised explosives. His elite troops were being ground to dust against the unyielding human defenses. "Enough!" Scavra snarled, banging his head on the holomap. "We end this now." He outlined his plan to his subordinates. A feigned withdrawal, pulling back from key sectors to create the illusion of a wider retreat. The humans would overextend themselves. And then... "Spring the trap!" Scavra hissed, his eyes glittering with malice. The next day, Vidian forces began a carefully choreographed pullback. Dropships screamed into the sky, loaded with evacuating troops. Artillery fell silent. For the first time in weeks, parts of the city grew quiet. In his fortified bunker, Colonel Hunter studied the tactical feeds with narrowed eyes. "They're retreating," he muttered, hardly daring to believe it. His second-in-command, Captain Chen, nodded cautiously. "Looks like we've broken their will to fight, sir." Hunter chewed his lip, considering. It could be a trap, but... "We can't let this opportunity slip away. Prep the QRF. We're going to push them all the way off this rock." Scavra watched from his cloaked command post as human troops surged into the seemingly abandoned sectors. They moved with caution at first, then with growing confidence as they encountered only token resistance. "That's it," Scavra purred. "Come to Papa." The trap was sprung with brutal efficiency. Jump infantry erupted from hidden positions, jetpacks flaring as they rained death from above. Crossfires opened up from pre-sighted positions, catching the humans in a killing field of blazing energy weapons. Hunter realized his mistake too late. "It's a trap!" he roared over the command net. "All units, fall back!" But there was nowhere to fall back to. Vidian heavy armor rolled into position, blocking escape routes with their massive bulk. Hunter's troops were caught in a meat grinder, Vidian fire coming from all directions. The colonel himself waded into the fray, his powered armor shrugging off small arms fire as he carved a bloody path through Vidian infantry. His railgun thundered, each shot turning an alien soldier into a red mist. "To me!" Hunter bellowed. "Form up on me! We're punching out of this hellhole!" His remaining troops rallied around their leader, fighting with the desperation of cornered animals. But for every Vidian they cut down, 2 more took its place. The noose tightened inexorably. A Vidian heavy mech stomped into view, its massive cannon tracking onto Hunter. The colonel saw it too late. The blast caught him square in the chest, hurling him backward in a spray of armor fragments and blood. "Colonel's down!" someone screamed. Lying in a pool of his own blood, systems flashing red, Hunter knew it was over. With the last of his strength, he keyed in the detonation code for the micro-nuke in his armor's power core. "Get clear," he rasped to his few surviving troops. "That's an order. Go. Live to fight another day." The thermobaric detonation momentarily cleared a gap in the Vidian lines. A handful of human soldiers dragged their grievously wounded commander to safety, even as Scavra howled in rage at seeing his prize slip away. In the aftermath, Scavra surveyed the carnage with grim satisfaction. The cost had been high, but the human resistance was broken. Their legendary leader incapacitated. Their elite forces decimated. "Prepare for the final push," Scavra ordered. "We take this city regardless of the cost." But even as the Vidian war machine geared up for its killing blow, a new threat loomed on the horizon. The first elements of humanity's main battle fleet slipped into the system, undetected by Vidian sensors. The true test of Scavra's invasion was about to begin. The night sky above Arcadia erupted in a blaze of light as the human fleet tore through the fabric of space-time. The Avenger, a behemoth of advanced technology and firepower, led the charge. On its bridge, Admiral Rayner's eyes narrowed as he surveyed the tactical display. "Commence Operation Thunderbolt," he ordered, his voice cold and precise. The fleet's guns roared to life. Railgun slugs accelerated to relativistic speeds, while plasma lances cut through the void. Scavra's scout ships disintegrated in silent flashes, their crews vaporized before they could even register the attack. On the planet's surface, Vidian troops looked up in confusion as their comms went dead. Seconds later, the sky rained fire. Landing zones were reduced to craters, dropships torn apart mid-flight. The lucky ones died instantly. The rest screamed as superheated plasma melted through armor and flesh alike. Warlord Scavra's mandibles clicked in agitation as reports flooded in. "Impossible!" he hissed. "They can't have—" His words were cut off as the first human dropship screamed through the atmosphere. Doors slammed open, disgorging wave after wave of armored troopers. Their boots hadn't even touched the ground before they opened fire, energy weapons carving bloody swathes through the stunned Vidian ranks. In the ruins of what had once been Arcadia's central plaza, a battered group of militia fighters huddled behind a makeshift barricade. Private Sarah Chen, her face streaked with grime and dried blood, risked a glance over the top. Her eyes widened. "Holy shit," she breathed. "It's them. It's really them." A nearby trooper, his armor pockmarked with plasma burns, let out a ragged cheer. Others took up the cry, a sound of desperate hope and fury. The human counterattack slammed into Scavra's forces like a tsunami. Caught between the hammer of the new arrivals and the anvil of the surviving defenders, the Vidians crumbled. Scavra raged from his command post, spittle flying as he barked increasingly frantic orders. But it was futile. His troops, once so confident in their superiority, now broke and ran. Those who surrendered were the lucky ones. After 2 days of relentless combat, Scavra made his last bold strategy. He climbed into the command seat of a massive war mech, leading a charge of his few remaining heavy units. "I'll kill every last one of you human vermin myself," he roared over an open channel. His tirade was cut short as a bolt of coherent energy lanced down from orbit. The Avenger's main gun had spoken. When the light faded, Scavra's mech lay broken and sparking in a pool of molten asphalt. In the aftermath, shell-shocked Vidian prisoners shuffled into hastily erected camps. Once proud warriors now stood in long lines, stripped of weapons and armor, awaiting processing with dead eyes. Days later, in a field hospital overflowing with the wounded, Admiral Rayner stood at attention before Colonel Hunter's bed. The colonel's body was a mass of bandages and tubes, but his eyes burned with undiminished fire. Rayner's voice was solemn. "In recognition of your valor, Colonel, you've been granted the right to a final mission. Name it, and it shall be done." Hunter's response came without hesitation, his voice a pained rasp. "Scavra, I want to put that bastard down myself." Rayner nodded gravely. "So be it." As the sun rose over the ruined city the next day, a wheelchair-bound Hunter faced the captured warlord. Scavra sneered, defiant to the last. Hunter raised a pistol in a trembling hand. "This is for Arcadia," he growled. A single shot rang out.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.